The Netherlands have been blessed with incredible talent throughout their history and have undoubtedly produced some of the best players of all time. However, the country of legends such as Johan Cruyff, Ruud Gullit, Frank Rijkaard, Ronald Koeman and Robin van Persie has only won a single trophy in the last 90 years, and the player who brought home the European title in 1988 is arguably the best Dutch player of all time, as well as one of the greatest strikers ever, the amazing Marco van Basten. Yes, you may have heard the fascinating story of the Ajax and Milan legend, and today you have the chance to discover it, reaching the pinnacle of his great career, the triumph in 1988, and that volley in the final against the Soviet Union. Yes, there are many different opinions as to who is the favourite player in Dutch history. Some say Cruyff, others say the Flying Dutchman Van Persie, and why not Wesley Sneijder? But the fact remains that the only Dutch superstar to bring home a trophy is Van Basten. Gifted with incredible ability in front of goal, as well as the immense agility, physicality and creativity in his game, Van Basten was truly the perfect striker. He won a huge number of trophies and awards during his career, including 3 Ballon d'Ors and 2 Champions League trophies. But what if I told you that if Van Basten had had more luck with injuries, we would be talking about him, not Messi, as the first player in history to win 5 Ballon d'Ors. Yes, the forward suffered a number of ankle injuries during his professional path, the last of which proved to be the devastating blow when he was just 28 years old. But before we get to that unfortunate part of his career, let's start from the very beginning. Marco van Basten was born in the city of Utrecht on the 31st of October 1964. He took an interest in football at a very young age and started playing for a small local team called EDO at the age of 6, before moving to Utrecht a year later. His breakthrough year as a professional came in 1981 when he was signed by Ajax, being only 16 years old at the time. He was an astonishing talent from a very young age, breaking into the Ajax men's team so quickly that the then winner of the 3 Ballon d'Ors Johan Cruyff was forced to leave the team. Yes, a little known fact, but the two legends of Dutch football indeed shared a dressing room between 1981 and 1983. In his first season at the club, Van Basten didn't get many chances to play, mainly because of the lack of experience. But in 1982-83, he became a key player in the Ajax attack. He scored 11 goals in 25 appearances for them, and although you might think those weren't some extraordinary figures, well, Ajax took the risk of selling their 2 main strikers at the time, Wim Kieft and Johan Cruyff, and relied on Van Basten to be the team's top scorer. Then, in his first season, having a role as Ajax star man, Van Basten certainly lived up to the hype, scoring 28 goals in 26 Eredivisie games, or a goal every 80 minutes in the Dutch Championship. And although 1983-84 was his best individual season up to that point in his career, Ajax didn't win the title. Not only that, but it went down as Van Basten's worst season in terms of silverware, as he and Ajax went trophyless. However, this did not break the talented striker. Indeed, 1984-85 was an elite year for Van Basten, who excelled not only as a prolific goal scorer, but as a phenomenal team player, scoring 22 goals and assisting 19 in 33 appearances for Ajax. Those 41 goal contributions in the Eredivisie brought the title back to the Amsterdam Arena. Well, generally speaking, if you look at the stats from his time at Ajax, you can see how his numbers improved progressively from season to season. He just got better and better and better with every game he played. And if 41 goal contributions seems impressive to you, how about the figures from his next season, 1985-86? He contributed to his team in pretty much every game he played, scoring an incredible 37 goals, which is still in the top 10 for most goals scored by a player in a single season in Eredivisie. He even set a very memorable record that campaign, when he scored 6 goals in only 45 minutes against Sparta Rotterdam, something that has never been done since. The Amsterdam side missed out on their Eredivisie title, but in 1987, Marco won his first European trophy, the European Winners' Cup, in which he scored 6 goals en route to the coveted trophy, including the winner in the final. Van Basten was already one of the most influential players in the world, always there when Ajax needed him. Yes, in modern times, we have many examples of clutch players, but in the 80s, Marco van Basten was that man. As well as scoring the winning goal in Ajax's first European trophy in 14 years, he also scored twice in the Dutch Cup final in a 4-2 victory over ADO Den Haag. His huge impact on Ajax's season also earned Van Basten his first Ballon d'Or nomination, finishing 6th. His numbers were incredible, as in just 5 years at Ajax, he became one of the top 5 scorers in the club's history. and what was most impressive was the consistency with which he scored for his team. Between 1982 and 1987, Marco scored 152 goals in 172 games, or an average of a goal every 93 minutes. Well, there is no player in the top 60 of Ajax's all-time top scorers with a better success rate than this. He was the new superstar of Dutch and European football, and he was determined to raise the level even more. Basically, every European giant wanted Van Basten in their team, but he opted to join the newly revamped AC Milan, who were owned by businessman Silvio Berlusconi. The influential billionaire wielded a lot of power at the time, having taken over the sleeping Italian giants just a year earlier, with huge ambitions to make them the best in the world. Indeed, AC Milan were having a tough time in the 80s, going through an agonizing 8-year title drought. Like any great businessman, Berlusconi had his plan and brought in the 3 best Dutch players of the time: Van Basten and Ruud Gullit in 1987 and Frank Rijkaard a year later. Marco's first season with the Rossoneri was far from impressive on an individual level, since he injured his ankle, playing only 11 games in the league. But the owner's formidable ambitions had a huge impact on the club's success, winning Serie A and the Italian Super Cup just days before the greatest moment of Van Basten's career, Euro 1988. Focusing more on the Dutch national team, well, as we said, they had tremendous talent and had reached 2 major finals in the past, the 1974 and 1978 World Cups, but never really lifted a trophy. They also finished 3rd in the European Championship in 1976. Yes, the 70s were amazingly successful years for Dutch football, but the fans had lost faith that they would ever win a trophy if they failed during their golden generation. Fortunately for them, Van Basten, who led the whole team as its leader, almost single-handedly brought home the European title in 1988, which remains the only trophy the Netherlands have won in their 90-year history at major tournaments. Managed by the legendary Rinus Michels, the squad included other greats such as Gullit, Ronald Koeman and Rijkaard. The Netherlands were drawn in a tough group with the Soviet Union, Ireland and England. But the tournament got off to a disastrous start for Van Basten's side, who lost to the Soviet Union in the first round. And just when everyone thought that those Euros would be yet another failure for the talented Dutch team, Van Basten's brilliance came to the fore, with a hat-trick against Lineker's England and a 3-1 victory. A tough but sweet 1-0 win over Ireland saw Rinus Michels' side finish 2nd in their group and set up a knockout clash with West Germany in a rematch of the 1974 World Cup final. At the time, their squad was packed with superstars, including Lothar Matthäus, Andreas Bremer, Rudi Völler and Jürgen Klinsmann. On top of that, Germany had the home crowd cheering them on in the European Championship, which had its effect as they opened the scoring first. But then Van Basten produced his 2nd highlight moment of the tournament, turning the game more or less on his own. First, he won the penalty which Koeman converted to make it 1-1, and then he used his fascinating footballing IQ to slide across the turf on a long pass from teammate Jan Wouters to score the 88th minute winner and send his team through to the final. And then, 4 days later, the most memorable and successful match in Dutch football folklore, final number 3 in their history, which this time would prove to be different. This time, fate would be on their side. Their opponents were once again the Soviet Union, the only team to have beaten them so far. So, the 2 Milan men, Van Basten and Gullit, led their team to a famous 2-0 victory, with the most memorable goal being a volley from an impossible angle by Van Basten. Yes, you can be sure you'll be seeing it at least a dozen times over the next 2 months as a reminder of great Euro moments before and during this summer's tournament in Germany. By the end of his 13-year career, Van Basten had won 3 Ballon d'Ors, including perhaps his favourite, in 1988 when he won the European Championship. He also played in 3 Champions League finals, winning twice, but the third was particularly devastating. It was the last game of his entire career. After being sidelined with serious ankle injuries, the Dutchman was selected to start the 1993 Champions League final against Olympique Marseille. The 86th minute of the final at the Olympiastadion in Munich would be one Marco van Basten would never forget. Marseille's goalscorer in that final, Basile Boli, injured the Dutch superstar and ended his career. Then, after several attempts to return to professional football, he never did. On the 17th of August 1995, when he announced his retirement after more than 2 years on the sidelines, Van Basten admitted defeat in his battle to recover. He made several farewell appearances at San Siro to thank the home fans, with an emotional Milan coach Fabio Capello bursting into tears. As great as it is, football can sometimes be a very cruel game. One day you win it all, score hundreds of goals, have the world at your feet, and the next day, your dreams and that of your millions of supporters is forgotten forever. Yes, Van Basten indeed remains one of the few iconic what-if players whose career was cut short by injury. Much could be speculated as to how many more Ballon d'Ors, Champions Leagues, and why not international trophies Van Basten could have won in his career after that game against Marseille. But sadly, we will never know. Before we end the video, we invite you to share your thoughts on Van Basten's incredible career in the comment section below. And if you want to see more memorable stories like this one, feel free to check out some of the videos on your screen right now. Catch you in the next one, and see you on the pitch.